greetings, welcome, and thank you for being here today. I'm Navneet Singh, your host for this webinar. I know that today's topic will bring up a number of questions from you. So you may type your questions in chat box, and I want to let you know that we will address as many as we can in the time we have today. And I welcome and request our NBMS National Webinar Coordinator, Professor Dr. Jyoti Prakash, to start this session. Thank you, and over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Navneet. Good afternoon, everybody. Today, it's our proud pleasure to have Dr. Seema Parija with us. We'll be discussing psychiatric assessment for sex reassignment surgery. I think in my tenure, I have been fortunate to have very good students, and among them, who has made me proud, and among them, Dr. Seema Parija is definitely one of them. She had come to do DPM with us, but believe me, she was at par with any MD psychiatry student at that point of time. Subsequently, she went ahead to do further DNB from Institute of Mental Health, Agra. So in a way, she has exposure to both General Hospital Psychiatric Unit and a large mental health setup. From there, she went to do advanced course in child psychiatry. Then she wanted to further do something, so she actually went ahead and now have probably heading the Digital Psychiatry Academy at Odisha. So anything more than digital, I couldn't have thought of, but that's the spirit of Dr. Seema Parija, who we always knew would do us proud and do well. So with that, over to us for psychiatric assessment for sex reassignment surgery. Dr. Seema Parija, please.
Thank you, sir, for the kind words. So, moving ahead, good afternoon, everyone. Like today, my topic is psychiatric assessment for sex reassignment surgery. So, like I work in a tertiary care hospital, and we usually get referral, like asking for evaluation if the candidate is fit for sex reassignment surgery. So, let us see how it goes.
Hot topic.
So I'll be covering the following topics. The first will be sex and gender, then gender identity, gender role, gender dysphoria, transgender, the definition, the types of sex reassignment surgery, psychiatric assessment in adolescents for gender dysphoria, psychiatric assessment in adults for gender dysphoria, psychiatric assessment prior to hormone therapy, and then we will come to our the topic like psychiatric assessment prior to sex reassignment surgery. Because when the person is assigned for a sex reassignment surgery, before that he usually takes hormone therapy, which lasts for around 12 months. Also, some people take, and then they come for sex reassignment surgery. So, coming to sex and gender. According to the WHO definition, sex refers to the different biological and physiological characteristics of males and females, such as reproductive organs, chromosomes, hormones, etc. So, it is like determined at birth. And then gender. It refers to the socially constructed characteristics of women and men, such as norms, roles, and relationships of and between the different groups of men and women. So it varies from society to society and can be changed. So the concept of gender, actually it involves the elements like relational, hierarchical, like in our society. So females, they have a specific gender role, like they should look after the children and do the domestic work, while the male, he has a higher status is given. So to the male. So in this context, the gender has, like historically also it has been important, and there is a contextual and institutional element when we talk about gender. While most of the people are born either male or female, they are taught appropriate norms and behavior, including how they should interact with others of the same or opposite sex within households, communities, and workplaces. So when the individuals or groups, they do not fit in the established gender norms, they face stigma, discrimination, and social exclusion, all of which adversely affects health. So, coming to the topic of gender identity, we need to understand it because, this is a very important concept. It is popularly defined as one's persistent inner sense of belonging to either male or female gender category, while the gender role is described as outward expression of the inner sense of gender identity. It is a social role encompassing a range of behaviors and attitudes that are generally considered acceptable, appropriate, or desirable for a person based on that person's sex. So gender identity, it is a very personal concept. So the person himself says that whether he belongs to male or female gender, what he feels, it is the inner sense of belonging. And as we can see that in this diagram also, like in this picture, the gender role, they can assume different gender role. And so nowadays also in the modern era, the gender roles are changing. So experienced gender or gender identity may be either male, female, or someone in between, or neither. And gender expression or gender role may be categorized into masculine, feminine, or it may run into a dimension. So sex is basically assigned at birth. So it can be female, male, or intersex. Gender identity, okay, it is established as it can be a cis woman who is anatomically also female, and as per gender identity, also she is female. And trans woman, she will be male, but her gender identity, it is a female gender identity. So they are called trans women. And similarly, cis man and trans man. And then there is something called gender non-conforming. Like they don't conform to the our classification of the male and female gender. Okay. So, and then there is also something called gender expression, like how they express themselves outwardly. Like the dressing, the hair, and all. And there is something called sexual orientation that depends on how the person is attracted to men, or if attracted to women or multiple genders. So coming to how the gender identity it develops. So gender identity usually develops at the age of 3 to 4 years, and the cognitive prerequisite is in the pre-operational stage. The child recognizes biological and external appearance differences in people of different genders, and child maybe thinks that gender is mutable. Then there is gender stability phase at 4 to 6 years of age. It is in the late pre-operation stage, early concrete operations. So the child begins to understand that the gender does not change over time. And a little boy will grow up to be a man, and a little girl will grow up to be a woman. And then a stage comes at 6 to 7 years of age when the child knows that the gender is constant, and then the child is in the phase of concrete operation. So the child understands that the gender does not change despite the individual's appearance or activities, it remains the same. So coming to the transgender and non-conformity population. So gender non-conformity refers to the extent to which the person's gender identity, role, or expression differs from the cultural norms prescribed for the people of a particular sex. So these people who are gender non-conformity, so they might might not experience gender dysphoria. Okay. But when we talk about the gender dysphoria, which like transgender, which can be told as transgender also, it refers to the discomfort or distress, basically, which is caused by a discrepancy between a person's gender identity and that person's sex assigned at birth, and also the assigned gender role and or the primary and secondary sex characteristics. So this distress is very important. The distress associated with gender dysphoria, it can be reduced by a treatment which is aimed at providing a gender role and expression which is comfortable for them, even if they differ from the prevailing norms and expectations of the sex assigned at the birth. So, according to the Transgender Persons Protection of Rights Act 2019, the definition of transgender is as a person whose expressed gender does not match with the gender assigned to the person at birth. It includes trans man or trans woman, whether or not the person has undergone sex reassignment surgery or hormone therapy or laser therapy or any therapy. And a person with intersex variation, gender queer, and persons having socio-cultural identities such as Kinnar, Hijra, Aravani, Jogta, these are all included. But as per the medical definitions, when we talk about the transgender, the intersex variations, they are usually excluded. But this is the legal definition which holds.
1 year back, no?
So, if we come to the medical definition, we follow the ICD-10 and DSM-5 categorization. So, in the ICD-10, the concept of gender is that gender is binary. It's either male or female. And while the DSM-5, it has come up that the gender is fluid and it can move to either way. When we talk about the diagnostic category, so ICD-10, they talk about gender identity disorder, either which starts from the adolescent age or in the adult group. And DSM-5, the term is given as gender dysphoria. And there is also a diagnosis given as transsexualism. While in adolescents and adults, gender dysphoria is there in DSM-5. And if we talk about the duration, minimum a duration of 2 years as per ICD-10. But as per DSM-5, if 6 months also, if gender dysphoria is, if it is the distress is there and all the features, all the criteria it's meeting, then in 6 months also we can tell that the person is having gender dysphoria. So if we come to the category criteria, so in gender identity disorder, there is a desire to live and be accepted as a member of opposite sex, usually accompanied by the wish to make one's body as congruent as possible with one's preferred sex through surgery and hormonal treatment. While in gender dysphoria, 2 of the following must be present. It is very important. So in gender dysphoria, there can be a marked incongruence between one's experienced or expressed gender and primary or secondary sex characteristics. So there is an incongruence and there is a strong desire to get rid of one's primary and or secondary sexual characteristics. And there is a strong desire for the primary and or secondary sex characteristics of the other gender. A strong desire to be of the other gender. And also a strong desire to be treated as other gender. And a conviction that one has the typical feelings and reactions of other gender. So if two are present, then we can say that the person is having gender dysphoria. So basically, there is incongruence between the one's experienced or expressed gender and the sex characteristics, and there is a strong desire to get rid of the present primary and the secondary sexual characteristics, and there is a desire that to be of the other gender and acquire the primary and secondary characteristic of the other gender, and there is a desire to be treated as other gender. So here ICD-10 and DSM-5, they both agree that distress or impairment should be there. And when we talk about the sexual development disorders of sexual development, which is like if there are any anatomical intersex, any hormonal and chromosomal abnormalities at birth, if an individual is with DSD and also satisfies the diagnostic requirement of gender incongruence or gender dysphoria, both the diagnosis can be assigned as per DSM-5, while in ICD-10 it is not specified. So when we move towards ICD-11, ICD-11 has redefined gender identity related health, okay, and has removed transsexualism and gender identity disorder of children with gender incongruence of adolescence and childhood and gender incongruence of childhood. And further, they have moved it out from the chapter of mental and behavioral disorders and included in the new conditions related to sexual health chapter. So that is important because they understand that having a different gender identity does not mean that the person is suffering from any mental disorder. So this is a very welcome step. So here we can see a typical girl who is having female sex, and then but the gender identity, she identifies herself as a male. So starts putting clothes like that, and then also wants her arms to be strong like a male gender and wants to do activities like a male gender. And when she looks in the mirror, she's not happy. Okay, she wants to get rid of the breast tissue. So when we come across such a person, then obviously there will be mental health issues in transgender and non-conforming population. The risk of anxiety, depression, self-harm and suicides, they are increased by 2 to 3-fold among transgender youth when compared to cisgender matched control in both OPD and inpatient mental health settings. These are few studies have been done also in India and abroad. So among all other psychiatric morbidities, it is important that the risk of suicide was 20 times higher among transgender individuals when compared to the general population. Trans men are twice likely to commit suicide as trans women. However, the rates of suicide among both the groups were significantly higher when compared to the general population. So, depression and anxiety, the way they are treated from the childhood, they don't want to be treated as a female and the person is being addressed, and in social context also the person is identified, and there is also like in school and all, in other social contexts, the discrimination is there. So because of all this stigma, discrimination, it has been seen that depression and anxiety is very common in the transgender population. And about 30 to 70% of individuals had a lifetime diagnosis of depression. And about 3 to 30% have current diagnosis of anxiety disorder. There is 2 to 3-fold increase in depression and anxiety. And there is some form of psychological distress or adjustment disorder. And the rates of suicide, as we said, it is very high, about 30 to 50% across studies, about 20 times more than the general population. And about 50% of the individuals has attempted suicide at least once by their 20th birthday. So we need to understand that the gender identity, as we saw, that it develops by the age of 3 years. So, and by the time the person is firm and expresses himself, so till then he or she has undergone a lot of psychological trauma. So we need to be we need to understand as a society. So in India, the rate of completed suicide among transgender is around 30%. So moving ahead, substance use disorder is also 2.5 to 4% higher. And about 10 to 66% of transgender individuals, they have diagnosis of substance use disorder. Then coming to the infection, like about 17.5 to 41% of transgenders, they are found to be HIV positive. This is taken from many of the studies they have pointed out. So this data, all of these data has been taken from an NIMHANS publication. It was published in 2021. So transgender women, they have around 50 times high risk of contracting HIV than others. And also other sexually transmitted infections like syphilis, gonorrhea, chlamydia, herpes, HPV, they are more common than in the general population. And if we talk about violence, then about 65 to 98% people, transgender population, they had faced verbal abuse. And about 25 to 79% has faced some form of physical abuse. And 20 to 33% has faced sexual abuse. So there is social stigma, and so there is an underreporting of these acts of violence. Also, we see that the medical comorbidity is also higher. Like there is increased propensity to develop obesity, metabolic syndrome, and diabetes. And also, as they are taking hormone therapy, transgender men, they also have elevated liver enzymes, decreased bone mineral density, and increased risk of ovarian cancer. So basically, when a child has a gender identity, okay, which is different, okay, than the sexual identity, then gradually, if he decides for the transition, then when he goes, then what are the steps one should follow? Like tell the loved ones who they trust, the family members, and gradually they change their name, and then they ask themselves to be referred from by other pronouns, and then they think about the hormone therapy and sex reassignment surgery or gender affirming surgery, they are called. And then they also experiment with their gender expression. So basically the gender affirming surgery, it comes the last before all these start. So what they do, like trans women, they start by tucking. Okay, tucking so that the genitalia is not visible, okay, the bulge is not seen, and taping. And then the trans men, they do packing and binding. So these all things they do to hide their sexual identity. So when we see the female to male transition process, when they start, when there is a realization that they should have a transition, so if there is a like psychotherapy, it's best. If the person goes to a mental health professional, then it is the best thing they can do, because and after that they can go for a hormone therapy, the social changes like the wardrobe, the friends and family, the job, Then there are legal changes. Then they can go for like mastectomy, hysterectomy, phalloplasty or metodioplasty, like that. So it is a very elaborate process, and whole throughout the cycle the role of mental health professional is very crucial. So many transgenders, they desire for hormonal therapy and sex reassignment surgery, but unfortunately in India these facilities are available free of cost only in few states like Tamil Nadu, Kerala, New Delhi. So even insurance does not cover. So the types of sex reassignment surgery, they can be like facial reconstructive surgery, chest or top surgery, genital or bottom surgery. So these procedures, they help the people to have the transition to their self-identified gender, also called gender affirmation or confirmation surgery. So when there is a male to female patient, the following procedures may be needed, like breast chest surgery, like augmentation mammoplasty with implants and lipofilling, genital surgery, anectomy, orchidectomy, vaginoplasty, clitoroplasty, vulvoplasty. Then non-genital, non-breast surgical interventions like facial feminization surgery, liposuction, lipofilling, voice surgery, the thyroid cartilage reduction, gluteal augmentations, hair reconstruction, and other aesthetic procedures may be required. And when it is a female to male patient, then breast surgery like subcutaneous mastectomy, genital surgery, hysterectomy, salpingo-oophorectomy, reconstruction of the fixed part of urethra, which can be combined into metodioplasty or with a phallop. Surgical interventions like voice surgery, liposuction, lipofilling, pectoral implants, or other aesthetic procedures can be undergone. So, like this is a picture of facial feminization surgery and how the person looks after all those facial surgery. And this is about the breast reconstruction using the breast implants. So this is the male to female gender reassignment surgery, and we can see how complicated this is, and so many challenges lies even during the operative procedure and post-operative also. So this is a female to male gender reassignment surgery. So hysterectomy, bilateral salpingo-oophorectomy, so many other things. Metodioplasty, it means the surgery of the clitoris. Okay, so many procedures they have to undergo. So when we come to the transgender persons and they are undergoing such surgery, so we should talk about their legal aspects also. In 2019, this act came into practice, and under section 4 to 6 of this act, a transgender person who is a major can apply for a gender identity certificate as a transgender or third gender with an affidavit saying that they are transgender. Along with a clinical psychologist report, they can have an affidavit and they can apply to the district magistrate and they can receive this identity card within 60 days. So they can avail the social schemes, various schemes from the government. So they are eligible after this card. So, and also for the identity change, this is after showing this card, they can change their identity in other certificates also. And if a person has undergone sex reassignment surgery, then under section 7 of this act, they can apply for a gender change certificate along with the medical certificate from the RMO or medical superintendent from the hospital where he has undergone the sex reassignment surgery. And for this, the person where he is staying is important, like the district magistrate of that area where the person has been residing for past 1 year will grant this certificate and identity card. So there is a World Professional Association for Transgender Health. So it has clear-cut guidelines. It has laid for the criteria of hormonal or surgical treatment of gender dysphoria. So first, the criteria is there should be a persistent and well-documented gender dysphoria. As we have evaluated, as we have talked about gender identity and gender dysphoria, so it should be well-documented. Second is there should be a capacity to make fully informed decision and consent to treatment. Third is the age of majority as per the given country. In our country, it is in 18 years. So before 18 years, the person cannot get a identity card of transgender or cannot undergo surgical treatment or hormonal treatment. So surgical treatment the person cannot undergo, but hormonal treatment, it depends on the case. But usually it is avoided. And if there is a significant medical or mental concerns present, if there are comorbid medical or mental disorder, so then they should be reasonably well controlled before the person undergoes a hormonal or surgical treatment. So coming to the psychiatric assessment. So basically there is a three main tasks of the assessment. First is the diagnosis, establishing the diagnosis. Second is the eligibility assessment. And third is the readiness assessment. So diagnosis, okay, we stick to the DSM and ICD criteria. So basically we look for gender dysphoria. And so because that is required by the medical professional and also insurance plans abroad. So there, and in some countries it is covered under insurance also. And then the eligibility, it relates to certain specific requirement. Like here also before the genital surgery and all, the person is required to have that transition. Like for 12 months prior to the surgery, the person should live as the the gender which the person is going to change. So that person has to live like that for 12 months prior to the surgery. So readiness is a part of assessment that mostly resembles a general psychiatric assessment, whether the person is ready and also whether the person can give informed consent for that or not. So the mental health provider explores the individual's preparedness for the surgery, the expectations, the surgical goals, and communicates with the surgeon and other providers to promote positive outcome. Like it is a multidisciplinary team. So basically the urologist is involved, the plastic surgeon is involved, the endocrinologist is involved, psychiatrist is involved. So it is a multidisciplinary team. So when children and adolescents come to the psychiatrist, then they should assess for the gender dysphoria. Though they cannot go for sex reassignment surgery before they are 18, but for gender dysphoria, they should come. Because gender dysphoria, as I said, that it differs from the disorder of sexual development. Because sexual development is a group of congenital conditions associated with genes, developmental programming, hormones, okay, which result in atypical development of internal and external genital structures. So this needs to be excluded, like this, the disorders of gonadal development, androgen synthesis, okay, persistent malarial duct syndrome, androgen excess. So all these should be ruled out. Like these are the disorders of sexual development. And approximately 10 to 39% of the children who present with gender dysphoria, they usually continue to have the gender dysphoria in adolescence too, about 10 to 39. So the diagnostic assessment should be according to DSM-5 and ICD-10. And the dysfunction and the distress, it should be noted in all areas. And any coexisting mental health problems like anxiety, depression, or autism spectrum disorders, they should be assessed. And risk for self-harm or suicide, it should be assessed. Detailed endocrine and gynecological examination should be done. And basically the attitude of the psychiatrist should not be negative. It should be an empathetic one. And the psychiatric assessment should cover the areas of emotional functioning, peer and social relationship, intellectual functioning, school achievement. And after that, if the gender dysphoria is present, then the adolescent should undergo individual psychotherapy and explore their gender identity and reduce the distress. So action should be taken prior. And at minimum at 18 years of age, they can apply for the certificate. So there are various support groups, and even the parents, they need to be psychoeducated about the child condition. So when there is gender dysphoria in adults, and in adult patient come, then also the same detailed history. And the gender dysphoria, it should be detailed assessment of the sex, gender, orientation, everything should be done. And any comorbid mood, anxiety disorder, substance use disorder, suicide, they should be ruled out. Then there should be assessment of the family dynamics, the social support system, the stigma faced at the work and educational places. And also the assessment should be done on the current stage of transition, like whether the person has completed social or medical surgical transitioning or both. So basically the risk-taking behavior, self-harm, that should be done, and the social support. And also if the person is planning for any hormonal treatment, then what are the goals, what are the expectations, what are the risks? Okay. So the physical examination should be done, necessary baseline laboratory investigations, including hormonal assays, it should be done. So if the individual does not have gender dysphoria, and as a consequence of gender incongruence, it should be communicated to the individual and referred to the alternate services. But if gender dysphoria is present, then the psychiatrist should provide information. Here, the psychiatrist is also acting as an educator. So he provides various information that are clinically appropriate so that they can take their own decision according to their own needs and preferences. Not all people from transgender community, they come and they opt for sexual reassignment surgery, because as we saw, it is a very complicated procedure. So not everyone wants. But if it is a significant distress and the person has a persistent desire to have the surgery, then only the person should move ahead. And the clinician must examine the capacity to give the informed consent. And also ascertain if they have applied or obtained a certificate of identity from the district management. So basically, overview of the therapeutic approaches of the gender dysphoria. There should be assessment of gender dysphoria, comorbid physical mental health conditions should be looked, social support, stigma, abuse, and then identify and establish the goals of treatment, and discuss various psychotherapeutic interventions. Then comes the stage, like identifying the stage of transitioning, assessment of the readiness of the individual for treatment. psychotherapy. Individual and family therapy is also needed because many a times the family members, they don't understand. And hormone therapy, if the age is greater than 18 years, then they can be given. And even for sexual reassignment surgery, it can be planned. And the care should be continued, and the social support can be also provided, and counsel about sexuality and prevention of STDs, education, okay, and the policy issues, the health which is there, the social benefit schemes. And again, another important thing is very important to talk about the sexual part, sexual function. Like the person should discuss with the surgeon, like how much functional he can be. And also if they have any reproductive issues, maybe preservation of the semen or eggs, it can be done if the person wants. So the transition, we are again moving to the same transition process. So psychotherapy, hormone therapy, social changes, legal changes, and then comes the surgery part. So hormone therapy, according to WPATH, the World Organization like for Transgender Health, so they should be initiated once the psychosocial assessment has been completed. Okay. And the patient has determined that he is appropriate candidate for therapy. And after informed consent, it can be done. As per, there is a referral required by a qualified mental health professional. But then again, this was something which was into controversy, that the person wants to take hormone therapy, then why should he visit a mental health professional? So again, the guidelines are changing day by day, and the 8th version of standard of care by WPATH is on the way. So let us see how the changes come. So the criteria for hormone therapy is basically if persistent, well-documented dysphoria for 6 months, psychological preparedness is there, and individual is 18 years of age or more, can give fully informed consent, and if there is a medical or mental health condition, then it is well controlled, then the person can go, and also the person can apply for should have a transgender certificate or ID as per legislation. So when we see transgender men, so they can have many testosterone options, and for transgender female women, they have many estrogen and anti-androgen options as their hormone therapy, which should be discussed along with the endocrinologist, because there are side effects to each one of them. Like there is a risk of osteoporosis if they are on testosterone, transgender men on testosterone. So the monitoring of testosterone levels should be done. Even men on transgender women on estrogen, so they have to be also screening themselves and monitor the hormone levels. So this is basically the primary duty of endocrinologist or the hormone prescribing physician, to provide information about the potential risks and complications. So before initiating, they have to take informed consent. So now coming to the sex reassignment surgery per se. So basically this is undertaken to reduce the sense of gender dysphoria and improve the self-image. But this has always been questioned and objected, citing ethical concerns. But again, when the person is willing for SRS, then when he comes to the psychiatrist, then there should be an assessment of the expectations from the surgical procedure and the psychological preparedness for the surgery. Because many times when personally we have seen like persons being referred for assessment, then we come to understand that they don't know much about the surgical part. So all the details should be told to them, and then the decision lies on them, like considering the risk and complications involved, whether they want to go ahead with SRS. So basically, if they have a desire for fertility preservation, then it should be assessed. The details of hormone therapy which they have been taking, and any adverse effect, knowledge and information about different surgical techniques should be discussed by the surgeon. But even the psychiatrist should be aware what procedure the person is going to undergo. And then the surgical intervention, it takes like few weeks to months. Even the person takes months to recover. So that should be told, because if the person is undergoing the bottom surgery, so it takes a long time to heal. So aftercare needs to be planned. And then the support networks should be identified and the person should be referred to them. And also, we should ascertain that the person has applied for the certificate of identity as a transgender from the district magistrate. So, if it is a non-genital surgery or a genital surgery, like chest and breast surgery and genital surgery, then there should be gender dysphoria, capacity to make informed consent, 18 years and above, and then this comes that he or she had lived full time in his or her desired gender role for the past 12 months. Okay, the person has been living in the desired gender role, then only the person can go ahead. And about the hormone therapy, though it is not absolutely prerequisite, but if it depends on the surgery per se, and a duration of 12 months of hormones before the breast augmentation procedure is recommended. Like this has been taken from WPATH guidelines, okay, standard care guidelines. So they suggest that before breast augmentation and gonadectomy and hysterectomy, at least 12 months of hormones should be taken unless contraindicated. And from before vaginoplasty or phalloplasty also, 12 months of hormones should be taken and 12 months of living in a gender role. So living in a gender role for 12 months, the required gender role, that is very important. Then referral for sexual reassignment surgery. Like if the person is coming directly to a mental health professional, then the person can refer. The psychiatrist, they can refer for a sexual reassignment surgery. Okay. So according to the Indian context, one qualified psychiatrist can certify, okay, and can give the referral. But WPATH recommends that individuals have to be evaluated by 2 psychiatrists. So in the referral letter, actually the transgender's name as per the birth certificate should be written along with the chosen name. Okay, the name which he has undergone, okay, after the changed gender role. So along with that, the ID card number, and then the result of psychiatric evaluation and psychosocial assessment, the duration of professional relationship of the psychiatrist and with the client, and also whether the person is capable of giving informed consent, and along with the statement that the psychiatrist is available for coordination and can be contacted. So basically, the certificate, the referral can be done like this, that this patient, his name has been under my care since this time. Their biologically assigned gender is this, but they identify as this and their chosen name. So you must also mention that the person has successfully and consistently living in a gender role congruent with the affirmed gender since. and how many sessions the person has undergone. And the persons have socially transitioned by like name, the change of pronoun, the dress, like hair, tucking, packing, binding. So like that. Despite this, they have anxiety because the person has done social transition, but despite that, the person is having significant anxiety, depression, and distress. So during my independent evaluation, the person is having gender dysphoria and the person expressed a persistent desire for sex reassignment surgery and is capable of making an informed decision. So therefore, I refer for a sex reassignment surgery. So this should be the whole complete report. So as psychiatrists, our duty is to identify and manage mental health problems during this process and after the process of transitioning. Ensure that the patients have a social support. Ensure regular follow-up with the endocrinologist and also the surgeon. And also endocrinologist, it is important because the cardiovascular risk or risk of osteoporosis and cancer is high. So ensure follow-up with the surgeon, gynecologist, urologist, and psychiatrist. Psychiatrist should play a role of educator also for these individuals. Collaborate with other psychiatrists at national and international level for best practices. So ensure best practices in the diagnosis and management of gender dysphoria through increasing awareness, educating healthcare professionals, and engaging them in healthcare and support of transgender people. So what happens? Most people who choose the surgeries experience an improvement in the quality of life. Basically, their quality of life improves. So depending on the procedure, about 94 to 100% of people report being satisfied with the surgery levels. So the people who work with a mental health provider before surgery, they experience more satisfaction and they are also more informed and they have more like they know they have a genuine like expectation. Okay. Not a very fantasy expectation from their surgeries. So realistic expectations from the surgery. So therefore they are more satisfied. So these are the main references. Thank you.
I got it. Thank you, Dr. Seema, for a wonderful elucidation. It was quite comprehensive and many caveats which we were also not aware has been discussed. Now, if there are any query, I'll ask people to unmute themselves and ask or put in the chat.
Good afternoon, ma'am. This is Dr. Jaspreet, ma'am, from AFMC. And I have a number of doubts, ma'am. Small doubts, ma'am. Like, ma'am, you said when we notice gender dysphoria in children, ma'am, so around 10 to 40% of them might continue into that, or otherwise some might revert back into their original. So at that stage of life, ma'am, can something like any behavioral, social, or psychotherapeutic measures which can be suggested to the parents or to the child, because not all will have like that phase of coming out and transition. Some will remain in that the granted gender sex also. What can be?
So thank you for the question because it is an age appropriate. Because gender identity problems if arise at 3 years of age, then our management will be different from that of if the child likes playing with the toys of opposite gender. So let him. So basically, we make the parents aware that it is okay. Let the child evolve. Okay, there is nothing abnormal. If the child likes dressing as a like a girl child starts dressing as a male. Okay, not to force, okay, and not to be harsh, to be understanding, that we can do. Okay, and not not to tell that it is very wrong. So let the child evolve. So be understand and be empathetic towards the child, and gradually let's see how it evolves out. So that should be the basic thing. And in the meanwhile, the address should be also there if there is any distress associated with the child. And in the school, if there is any bullying or if there is any like low confidence developing in the child, so that should be evaluated. And also a number of studies, they have found out that autism spectrum disorders, they might be in the background. So that also needs to be evaluated.
I think there's one in the chat also. Thomas Mathai has asked, hi ma'am, do you have any specific guideline for treatment of mental disorders in the transgender population, addressing both pharmacotherapy and psychotherapy?
Actually, the pharmacotherapy, it is not changed. It is as per our standard pharmacotherapy as we see the disorders. But the evaluation process, it is very different. First thing is to be empathetic towards them and to understand the person as he or she is. Because I will give an example that I had a patient like she is a trans female, and then she had to leave. I'm calling she because she prefers she. So she left her house at the age of 22 years because the parents were not understanding and they started staying separately, and then the parents, they cut off all the ties with her, and she no one was giving her employment. So these are certain issues which are very like specific to that transgender population. So that we need to understand as mental health professional. So the pharmacotherapy, though it won't change depending on whether it is anxiety or whether it is depressive disorder or whether it is substance use disorder, so they can go ahead. But the psychotherapy aspect, it needs to be an empathetic one, understanding the person as say, and supportive psychotherapy, and if there is family therapy, that is also needed, and at times group therapy also helps. And then also if the person is with certain support groups, then the prognosis improves and the person does not get stigmatized.
And another question is, what is appropriate age for diagnosis by Dr. Amit Chaudhary?
So like I said that the gender identity, it starts at 3 years of age, and by 8 years of age it is established. So we can always find that clue, but you never and that is again another thing, that is there any diagnosis, as DSM like ICD-11 is moving towards gender incongruence. So here we can always have a diagnosis of gender dysphoria. So that can be there if the distress is associated with the assigned sex and the gender role, the person is comfortable, the child is comfortable with the other gender, and distress is there, an impairment is there in the school domain, then it can be established earlier also. Like as I remember, I don't remember exactly, but in gender identity disorder in children and adolescent, as per ICD-10 also, it had like an onset in the childhood. One is that and another is in adolescence. So by 8 years of age, if there is an impairment of gender dysphoria, then we can have the diagnosis. But more than the diagnosis, the intervention is important.
So I think any other query?
Sir, good afternoon, sir. If I may ask, sir, answer.
Yeah, please.
You mentioned about
Speak louder.
social
Yeah?
schemes. We can how we can tell about what all social schemes do we have? Like, do we have reservations and all for transgender kind of
So actually, because so if we go by the legal aspect, so we have to know that there was again in Delhi High Court Article 377 when there was so much hue and cry about decriminalizing, and after that, after Delhi High Court, Supreme Court, they told that no, it is again not decriminalized, and after that, third gender was legally accepted as per India. And then in 2019 only, this protection of transgender rights, it came into place. So there are definite benefit schemes associated, and also there is a provision that people, they should not be discrimination should not be there. Like if the person is coming to the hospital, and if as a doctor we discriminate with him, then maybe up from 6 months to 2 years of imprisonment can happen if there is a discrimination. So the act, it provides such yeah, but there are also different schemes, though I am not completely aware about it.
Right. That was not in the purview of the class today, so not an issue. But I think that is an insight for everybody to dwell in and find out what Dr. Seema is trying to say. Most important thing is here is that the gender-sensitive approach, or probably gender neutrality or non-discriminatory approach in all aspects of psychotherapy and history taking or elicitation or approach towards transition, helping them out, would has to be there and is paramount. Any other query? I think there's one more, ma'am. In India, do we have a psychiatrist in team of SRS as mandatory?
Actually, like I am working in a government medical college, so any person who is who is willing for a sex reassignment surgery, they are referred to our setup. So we have our own team of clinical psychologists as well. So we evaluate, because here, like, no formal psychological instruments are there yet to identify whether it is like gender dysphoria. No structured scales are yet available. So it is basically the clinical assessment, and obviously psychiatrists are a part of SSRS as mandatory.
It is a psychiatric diagnosis, so it will come under purview of psychiatrists to identify and certify. So anything else?
So another question is about SRS. They are evaluated. What about the follow-up? Yes, we always ask them to follow up after the surgery also. Okay. So, but only thing is that few people, they have a reservation about visiting a mental health professional, and sometimes even when they are referred to a mental health professional, they feel more stigmatized because it is my body and it is my decision. Then why should I go to a mental health professional to assess that? But yes, they do follow up with us.
Yeah. Any further query or question? If there are none, I thank the Lord Dr. Seema for a comprehensive talk and addressing all queries so appropriately. Thank you. And with that, I will hand over the mic to Mr. Navneet for final closing.
Thank you very much, Dr. Seema, for the presentation, and thank you very much, Professor Dr. Jyoti Prakash, for joining us. And thank you to audience for joining us.
Thank you, everybody. And
Thank you.
आज कुछ भी नहीं है क्या? ये देख She's burst. She said it's coming. This is Reena, not Meenakshi, okay? मीनाक्षी बोल के
नहीं, रीना बोला मैंने। रीना सिंह ऐसे कुछ बोला।
रीना सिंह मेरे कान में मैंने मीनाक्षी की सुना, लेकिन अगर क्या कर रही थी वो 2017
पिज्जा का मजा वो चीज बर्स्ट में ही आता है।
बात तो सही है। नहीं ओके
पता है कल वो ड्राइवर कहाँ से घुमा के लेके गया था? कॉलेज वाला रूट पकड़ा था उसने।
मुझे लग रहा है जानबूझ के बोला था उसने मुझे।
बट ऐसा इंसान सुन, जहाँ से वो सिग्नल के पहले भी एक आता है जहाँ से सर्विस रोड में घुमा सकते हैं, ठीक है? मैं मम्मी से बात करती हर मतलब मुझे कभी बोलना नहीं पड़ता था किसी भी ड्राइवर को कि यहाँ से आपको इधर लेना है। वो लोग वो दिखाता भी है मैप में यहाँ से सर्विस रोड में लेना है। उस बंदे ने एकदम फुल स्पीड में वो चलाए जा रहा है, वो छोड़ दिया उसने। मैंने बोला है ठीक है कोई बात नहीं, आगे वाला है, आगे वाले से ले लो।
रीना सिंह हाँ हाँ
ऐसे रखना,
ऐसे रखना
इतना पता करना।
ओके।
उसके बाद जो आगे जो सिग्नल आ रहा है,
क्या बोल के गई?
बोला कि ऐसे करके ही रखना है इसको। तो आगे जो सिग्नल आता है जहाँ पे मेन वो बस स्टैंड वाला सिग्नल जहाँ पे बस पकड़ते हैं, वहां से भी इंसान ने आगे उड़ा दिया। मैंने बोला अरे यहाँ से यू टर्न लेना था आपको। फिर बोल रहा अच्छा ठीक है आगे से मैं यू टर्न ले लेता हूँ। फिर कितना आगे,
पैसे ज्यादा बढ़ेगा उतने ही लगेगा?
बहुत
बढ़ गए।
हाँ
कितने?
225 लगना था, 270 ऐसे ही लगा घर पहुंच के। फिर ऊपर से बंदा बोल के आ रहा है 300 दे दो, 300 दे दो, इतने अंदर तक आया हूँ। तो और मुझे ना कोई आदमी थोड़ा अजीब टाइप का लग रहा था। और
मुझे भी वो है ना, वो मुझे मेरे को लगता है जानबूझ के कर रहा था। मुझे ऐसा क्यों फील हो रहा है?
वो भी सकता है।
अंदर से बता रहा हूँ मतलब हाँ, क्या गलत भी हो सकता है।
हाँ मतलब कुछ भी हो सकता है, बट वो इंसान एज ए ह्यूमन मुझे थोड़ा सा अजीब लगा। तो मैं ज्यादा चिल्लम चिल्ली कुछ करना नहीं चाह रही थी, मतलब कुछ भी। तो उसने बस एक बार बोला कि 300 दे दो। मैंने बोला ठीक है, 300 दे दिया। और फिर बोल रहे कि थैंक यू सो मच, आपको कभी भी ऑटो की जरूरत होगी तो आप प्लीज मुझे कॉल कर लेना। मैंने बोला हाँ ठीक है। फिर जाके मैंने भैया को बताया कि वो ऐसे 300 मांग रहा था, 270 हुआ था, ऐसे इतना ज्यादा हो गया था। तो भैया बोल रहे कि क्यों 300 देना है, जब 270 है तो उतना ही देना है। तो मैंने बोला मैंने कुछ बहस की नहीं, मुझे अजीब सा लगा था इसलिए। तो फिर भैया ने बोला कि
होगा ना होगा मेरा बैग
आपको मैं उधर है। हाँ नीचे।
क्या कितने देते हैं? अभी बस 5 मिनट में। सर एक केस आया सर रीना सिंह का। कोई नहीं। रीना सिंह? यस सर। They might know.